All right, so we've worked our way through this letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to this little church in a city called Philippi. And he started the church, stayed with them for a while, and then he left. And he didn't, sorry about that. I don't know why I did that. And he didn't really see them again or even get a hold of them again for 10 years. And so, all throughout this 10 years, this little church was experiencing persecution and loss and stress on a continual basis. And so as we go through Philippians, Paul has brought up numerous reminders for us as far as the reality of having Jesus in our lives in the midst of chaos. So today, he's going to end today with probably, I would say, one of the most important truths that we should embrace as a Christ follower, as we live in this crazy culture that we live in today. So I'm going to give you the one thing. I'm going to start off right at the beginning giving you the one thing. Here it is. Contentment isn't found in having enough. It's found in discovering that Christ is enough. Contentment isn't found in having enough. It's found in discovering that Christ is enough. Okay, so somebody sent me this little short video thing. I think it was from Facebook and stuff. But I want you to hear what this guy said. All right, he said, I was, and he was talking about contentment. He said, I was taking a shower the other day, and I thought about this thought. He said, 75 years ago, nobody took a warm shower. Zero. Nobody. They didn't know what a warm shower was. Okay? And he said that we're living in this time where things have gotten so good we don't realize how good it is. He said the amount of calories that we're actually able to take in during the day was completely different 75 years ago. The fact that a majority of the babies born actually don't die by the time they're 1 year old. Okay. We have this thing called modern medicine today. Okay. The amount of entertainment we get. And he said if people would see our lives today from back then, they would call us kings and queens on how we live. And so he said that I thought this was so good. He said, life has never been more objectively better and subjectively bad. So he said, he asked the question, so how happy are you? He said, the truth is, our happiness is based on this equation. Quality of life minus envy. Quality of life minus envy. He says, because it is so easy for us to compare ourselves to others and not take pleasure in what we have. So as we're going to dive into this last part of Philippians, Paul's going to give us a truth that if we, in fact, he calls it a secret. He goes, I'm going to give you a secret to this thing called commitment, or contentment. I'm going to give you the secret to contentment. And he's writing this group of people where over the last 10 years, all the stuff that they have gone through and all the things that he talked about in this letter, he goes, I'm going to end with this. Because of all the things that you go through, this is like the number one thing. Like, if you learn this, it's going to help you navigate through your life. Okay? So, let me just ask you a question. Okay, so have you ever thought this question? Maybe you have. I don't know. If I could just get through this blank, then I'd finally have peace. If I can just get through this blank, then I would finally have peace. For those that are single, when I get married, or when I retire, or when our kids move out, or there was some laughter over there. What the? Okay? Or when I get a promotion, or when my health comes back, or when my bills are paid. Okay? Okay, here's the only problem with that kind of thinking, is the word if. Because every season of life brings a new if, doesn't it? It does. So we're going to jump into this. Philippians chapter 4, verse 10. Listen to what Paul writes. He says, "How I praise the Lord that you are concerned about me again. I know you have always been concerned for me, but you didn't have the chance to help me." Okay, so at this point, Paul, toward the end of his letter, he's thanking the Philippians, okay, not because he was really desperate and then they met his needs, although they did. He was thanking them for their consistent love. Like for the whole 10 years, like they never stopped encouraging him. Like they never stopped praying for him. And because during those 10 years, there were a lot of people that abandoned Paul. Like, I'm reading this other book and I'm finding out they're finding out, these scholars are finding out more and more and more about this guy named Paul and how he was probably treated, this guy named Paul. Okay? He was short. They really think he was really short. He was bald. They think he was bald. Yes. And so we even have some different accounts on even why he wrote what he did in some of his letters was because of the way he was treated by churches. Okay? But the Philippians didn't do that. They were very, very consistent. In fact, there were times that they wanted to help Paul, but they couldn't. Right? And he knew that. Okay, so he's thanking them. Thank you for being so consistent in your love for me. Okay, and then we step into verse 11. Listen to what he says. "Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have." Not that I was really ever in need, but I've learned this thing called contentment. Okay? That word contentment, okay, content, okay? In that original word, it describes somebody who was independent and self-sufficient. Okay? That's what that word means. But Paul hijacks that word. He hijacks it in this, okay? And instead of somebody that says, I have everything I need inside myself, okay, instead of that, Paul is saying, no. He's saying, I have everything I need because Christ lives in me. That's what he's talking about. His sufficiency isn't internal, it's relational, with this relationship with God that he has through Christ. Okay? And then the other thing he said on here that's key, we need to look. He says, I have learned. Do you know why he says that? Because that's not natural for us. It's not natural for us to be content. And so through all the things that Paul has gone through, he says, I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. Because here's the good news about this morning. Here it is. Listen. We can actually learn how to put this in practice. We can learn how to do this. Like in our culture that we live in, contentment. When is the last time you ever saw a commercial that was based out of contentment? Never. It's always based on the fact that you're not content, so you need this. Right? Over and over and over again. Okay? Because here's the thing. Okay. It's hard for us because we want to be self-sufficient. Okay, listen. Being self-sufficient is not a bad thing. Okay? It's not. In fact, that's what we try to teach our kids. That's our job as parents. We want to help you to get to the point where you can leave the nest and start being self-sufficient to live your life. That's what we try to teach them. Okay? But Paul says, I've learned this lesson, this thing called contentment. Okay? And so Paul's going to unpack it a little bit farther. Listen to verse 12. He says, I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. Okay, so Paul is telling us that this is something he had to learn. Paul had to learn this. Like we have to learn this. Okay? That word he's using, he says, I've learned the secret. Okay? They would use that word secret for somebody that's going through some training to get into some kind of secret religious society. Okay? He's saying, I've learned this secret. It's a place that not everybody gets into because not everybody's willing to be trained. You have to be willing to be trained to get into this, to learn this secret. Okay? And Paul's telling us that he's learned to be content in two extremes, a little and a lot. A little and a lot. Those two extremes. So the secret isn't tied to an amount. That's not what the secret is about. Okay? So there was another group of people there in the Old Testament that had to learn this lesson as they were learning about this relationship with God. And it was kind of a new relationship with God that got reignited from the fact that they got rescued from Egypt. And now this almost 2 million people, they have been rescued from Egypt by this amazing God that they saw do all of these amazing miracles. And now they're wandering around the desert. And God is trying to get them to this place that he promised, but it's going to take a while to get there. Okay? And so we're going to pick this up in Exodus. Okay? Chapter 16. And as I'm reading this, you might think that this whole thing is about the food, but it's not. Okay? Exodus chapter 16, starting in verse 1. Okay, they're wandering around the desert, right? For a while. And it says this, Then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin, between Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. So now they've been wandering in the desert for a month. Okay? So they were rescued from Egypt after spending 400 years in captivity, and then about a month after, they start complaining about their situation. Okay? Verse 3. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. Okay, let's not be too hard on them, okay? Now listen. When you go from having plenty of food to having almost no food, people get emotional. Okay? Food can be a very emotional thing. Okay, so I got to tell you a story. Okay, when I was in college, I went on a couple different short-term mission trips, and I was actually the cook on the mission trip, which means I cooked 3 meals a day for 80 people. Okay? 3 meals a day for, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. I don't remember. What was it, Kelly? 6 weeks? I don't remember. Okay. 3 meals a day. Okay? That means I had to plan all of the food, the menu. I had to make sure I had the recipes. I had to make sure that I went to the store at a certain time when I could get all the day-old stuff. I had to do all of that. Okay? Lots and lots of work. Okay? But if somebody didn't like what I made, they would let me know. Okay? They would let me know. Okay? And I'll never forget this one day, the director came up to me and said, "The lettuce you're serving us is crap." Okay? It's crap. Get the good stuff. I don't care how much it costs. Okay? And then it wasn't like a week later, the other director came up to me and said that we were on a limited budget and we had to stick to it religiously. Okay? Food is an emotional thing. Okay? They're emotional. And so the Israelites at this point, they were scrounging for sustenance. Okay? So they went off. Okay, and then verse 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day the people can go out, pick up as much food as they need for the day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. It's not about the food. On the 6th day, they will gather food when they prepare it, and there will be twice as much as usual." Come on. Okay, so I got to get back here. Okay, so, and then after this, Moses gets even more specific. Okay, he tells them basically each family is supposed to gather 2 quarts of this stuff called manna, which would be on the ground every morning. Okay, so they were supposed to go get 2 quarts per person for 5 days. The 6th day when they go out. They're supposed to go and gather 4 quarts per person, so they'll have enough on Sunday when they're not supposed to do any work. Okay? So here's the crazy thing. Okay, if anyone during those 5 days thought, you know what, man, I'm going to get some extra stuff. There's all this stuff here, 2 quarts. I want a snack at night. I'm going to get more. Okay, if they hoarded anything, it says the next day it would rot and smell horrible. Okay? But here's the crazy thing. On the 6th day, when they gathered double for 2 days, right? On the 7th day, they'd open up the jars of the stuff that's been there. It wouldn't rot or smell. It'd be fine. It'd be fine. Okay? So they had food every day without fail. Okay? Oh yeah, and aside from the manna, God sent thousands of quail at night for them to have meat. Okay? For them to have meat. And so, do you remember what they complained about? They complained about they had pots filled with meat and bread. That's what God sent them. Meat and bread. Okay? All right, so, verse 6, listen. So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, by evening you will realize it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Why would he say that? Didn't they know that? Didn't they see the miracles? Didn't they see the Red Sea divide up and they walked through the middle of it? Didn't they see the times that God, what he did? Didn't they know that? But see, something had gotten in the way of them remembering that was their circumstances. Right? Verse 7, in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord because he has heard your complaints which are against him, not us. That's fine. You can complain to us, but you know what? Who you're really complaining to is God. Okay? Why did God meet their needs this way? Why did he do that? Because they had to learn the lesson, the same lesson Paul had learned, and the same lesson we need to learn about this thing called contentment. Okay? Every morning, God gave them enough manna and meat for one day. There was no stockpiling, no guarantees for the next day. Every sunrise required a refreshed dependence on God. And when they tried to get extra, it rotted. Okay? Because here's the thing. The lesson wasn't that God would feed them. He knew he was going to take care of them. The lesson is what God wanted to teach them was this. You can trust me one day at a time. You can trust me. You can trust me one day at a time. Every day, when you get up, you can trust me. Okay? Because I want you to get this today. Contentment grows when tomorrow is placed in God's hands. Contentment grows when tomorrow is placed in God's hands. Okay? Because the truth is, the miracle wasn't the manna and the quail. God already knew what he was going to do. Okay? That wasn't the miracle. The miracle was learning they could trust the God who sent it. That was the miracle. Okay? So Paul's telling us, as he's writing the Philippians, he's telling us that he learned this same lesson. He learned this lesson, but he worded it a little bit different. And after stating that he had learned how to be content with a little or a lot, this is what he writes. And maybe you've heard this verse before. He writes this, "For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." How many people have heard that before? Have you heard that verse before? Okay. I think this is one of the most out-of-context verses quoted in the Bible, is this verse right here. Because people often, they quote this verse like this. I can win this championship through Christ. I can ace this test through Christ. I can get the promotion through Christ. I can climb this mountain through Christ. Maybe you guys said that on your trip. I don't know. I can accomplish anything if I have enough faith. Okay, that's how people quote this verse. Okay? It's as if this verse 13 becomes a promise of success and achievement. Okay? Like the emphasis is, Christ empowers me to accomplish my dreams. Now listen, God is going to empower you to fulfill your calling. He will empower you to fulfill your calling. But that's not how Paul's using this statement. We have to take the whole thing. He's not using it like that. What did Paul write before the statement? He said, I have learned to be content. Right? Because of what I just wrote, in verses 11, 12, I've learned how to live with a little. I've learned how to live with a lot. I've learned how to live being hungry. I learned how to live being well fed. I've learned how to live in suffering, and I've learned how to live prospering. There's this one theologian, listen to how he puts this. He says this, Paul is not making a general statement about unlimited achievement. Rather, he is affirming that Christ enables him to endure every circumstance mentioned. Every circumstance. Okay. He says, Paul gives me strength. Today, not once, every day. Every day. Every circumstance. Every need. Christ keeps supplying me with strength each day. Every day. Okay, so this thing right here, it's the thermometer. Okay, during Christmas time, I'll use this to make some different candies or whatever, right? And this thing's all marked on here with different things on here so you know what to do and how hot to get stuff, right? But this reflects the temperature around it. If it's cold, it's going to be cold. If it's hot, it's going to get hot. It rises. Okay. A lot of people live their lives as thermometers. Our emotional temperature is controlled by our circumstances. Okay? Paul said, I've learned how to become a thermostat. We have a thermostat at the back of that room right there. Here's the thing about a thermostat. Okay? A thermostat has a power source outside of the room. Okay? And it influences the environment instead of just reflecting it. Paul says, my power source wasn't prison or prosperity. That's not my power source, he says. It was Christ. He's my power source. Because Paul's circumstances changed constantly. He was running for his life one moment. He was doing great the next moment. The next moment, he was in the middle of the ocean, bobbing up and down. Another moment. I mean, it just changed constantly. But his source never did. His source never did. And it's interesting. You know how he learned this lesson? Is through going all the valleys, like up and down, up and down, up and down. And as he went through that, you know what he saw? His power source was consistent. Consistent. Okay? You know, so most people, they'll look at this section in Philippians through the lens of achievement. Paul wrote it through the lens of contentment. We might think that it means Christ will help me to accomplish anything. Paul meant Christ will give me the strength to remain faithful in everything. That's a deeper promise for all of us this morning. It means whether life gets better or not, whether I have plenty or little, whether I'm healthy or sick, employed or unemployed, celebrated or forgotten, Christ will supply everything I need to remain faithful and content. That's our challenge this morning. And I'm convinced God is going to continually teach us. He wants us to learn that. He wants us to learn that. Yet as I'm getting older, it's connected to one word. It's the word surrender. It's the word surrender. And the more that I've seen in my life as circumstances have changed, I've gone up and down and up and down and up and down. I have had these seasons in my life where I'm like, okay, are you going to surrender? Is he enough? Is he going to be enough? Because that source of power in our lives never changes. It's there all the time.